Volume 14, Elephant Armored School, Chapter 95, Tang San's New Tactics, Universal Skyflow. Grandmaster always emphasized tempering Tang San's ability to direct, and nodded to this, saying, "Tell me, what do you propose?" Tang San lowered his voice. "I'm thinking like this. 3 of us Shrek 7 devils appeared in the last fight. This fight we adjusted once. Zhu Qing replaces Tai Long, Little Ao replaces Jiang Zhu. If 5 of us 7 can't defeat the opponents, how can we take the final championship?" Hearing Tang San speak, Grandmaster revealed a smile. "Pretty good, very focused. It seems you've already planned in advance." Tang San's brows wrinkled slightly. "Can't say that. Anything can happen in the match. But I believe this is the best way to fight. It'll give us a chance at victory without exposing our full strength." To the side Tai Long couldn't keep from saying, "Young Master San, why not let me fight? Aren't the opponents all defense and strength type spirit masters? With me there, at least I could block them head on. There's no question about my ability to take a beating." Grandmaster smiled. "The reason he lets Zhu Qing take your place is because he's not planning to fight head on. Who understood the mind of his direct disciple better than him? How would Dai Mabai want to avoid battle?" His evil eyes shone. "Little San, you arrange it." Tang San nodded, gathering the fighters around him. In a low voice, he began to explain the tactics he had in mind. Grandmaster, Lu Erlong and Flender listened quietly on the side, without adding further opinions. They all understood that only relying on their own strength and wisdom to temper themselves in battle was the best method for these little monsters to grow in strength. The Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament 3rd day competition officially began. Only 10 of the 28 competing teams walked into the arena. The spacious arena was already arranged differently from the first day. Besides the original stage Tang San and the others used in the first match, another 4 equally sized platforms were built to the sides. Despite the size of these 5 stages, this Heaven Do Great Spirit arena that was capable of holding 80,000 people still didn't appear crowded. The 28 teams fighting on this 3rd day were split into 3 series, and Shrek Academy was part of the first to go on stage. As a result of their terrifying display in the first match, as well as the expectations for the Elephant Armored Academy to be able to compete for the first place, the match between them was arranged for the central main stage. As a major occasion that only happened every several years, plus the attraction competing spirit masters held to all parties, today the VIPs present on the viewing platform was practically nothing like the first day opening ceremonies. Not only was the upper crust of the empire all here, Emperor Zhu Yi still sat in the center of the front row. However, today the people at his side had changed from 2 to 4. Besides 7 treasure-glazed tile school master Ning Fengji and platinum bishop Salas, there were another 2 people. One was one of the 7 treasure-glazed tile schools 2 titled Douluo, Bone Douluo Gu Rong. The other was comparatively strange. Let alone attracting the gazes of a lot of the people in the VIP section, even comparatively distant spectators on both sides paid attention to him. Because this person's appearance really was a bit extraordinary. Using extraordinary to describe him seems somewhat insufficient. This person's body really was too enormous. Even sitting he was a lot taller than most people standing up. The Bone Douluo's build was already very lofty, but compared to this person next to Platinum Bishop Salas, he was still a bit inferior. Estimating this person's height by eye, he was at least 2 meters 50 or more. He occupied 3 of the spacious VIP seats by himself. Just like a mountain of meat. His skin was dark, and he had large eyes like bells. His dark skin seemed to release a special radiance, and just sitting there he gave a very powerful impression. His hair and beard were all white, apparently more than 70 years old. Ning Fengji also hadn't expected this person to show up in the VIP seats, and Bone Douluo at his side asked him with voice transfer, "Fengji, why would Heaven Elephant Hu Yan Zhen this old brat also come?" Ning Fengji equally used a method to compress his voice to a string to reply, When you see who Elephant Armored School's opponent today is, you'll understand. I'm afraid the reason Salus called Hu Yan Zhen over is also because of them. The reason why Spirit Hall was known as the most powerful on the continent, even to the extent where they could compare to the two great empires, was inseparably linked to the support of the lower four sects of the 7 great schools. Among the 7 great schools, of the upper 3 sects 7 treasure-glazed tile school always backed Heaven Du Empire's imperial family, while Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan remained neutral, and Clear Sky School secretly supported Star Luo Empire's imperial family. But the lower 4 sects had a close relationship with Spirit Hall. Even though they weren't affiliated, they were still absolutely intimate. The Elephant Armored School wasn't located far from Heaven Du City, and the mountain of meat now sitting next to Platinum Bishop Salus was precisely the Elephant Armored School master, Heaven Elephant Hu Yan Zhen. If he wasn't the master of a school, how could he be entitled to sit in the front row of the VIP section? Gu Rong smiled faintly, saying, "It seems this Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament is getting more and more interesting. It really is the emergence of the new generation. Fengji, when you originally predicted they were the golden generation of the Spirit Master world, I still doubted you a bit. But now it seems you were right. But I still don't know what teams will appear in the finals. Today Shrek Academy's opponents are the Elephant Armored School. Are you still optimistic?" Ning Fengji smiled. "Why not? Even though the Elephant Armored School isn't weak, their flaws are extremely clear. With Tang San's intelligence, and further adding the directions of an unequaled theoretician like Grandmaster, as long as they go all out, victory shouldn't be a problem." "Hold on, why is it like this?" As he spoke, Ning Fengji finally saw the 2 teams walking onto the central stage. He had met all the Shrek 7 devils, but the ones he saw going up first right now were Dai Mabai, Huang Yuan, and Jing Ling. Seeing Huang Yuan and Jing Ling, Ning Fengji immediately understood that Shrek Academy still wouldn't go all out in this fight. Lightly clapping his forehead, Ning Fengji helplessly shook his head, saying to the bone Douluo at his side, "This Shrek Academy really is ferocious. They're confronting the Elephant Armored School, but still won't use their full strength. Fortunately, they've exchanged 2 members. I hope they don't make any mistakes this time." While speaking, Ning Fengji's gaze unconsciously floated over to Platinum Bishop Salus on Emperor Zhu Yi's other side, just in time to catch a cold ferocity flit through Salus' eyes. At the time of the first match, Ning Fengji once made clear the relationship between the 7 treasure-glazed tile school and Shrek Academy. This moment, Ning Fengji's heart suddenly tightened somewhat. He faintly understood the reason Salus had called over Heaven Elephant Hu Yan Zhen. And Shrek Academy meeting this opponent in this match apparently also wasn't due to bad luck. The Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament was organized by Spirit Hall, assisted by the 2 great empires. Even though the rules embodied the 2 words, absolute impartiality, to the greatest extent, right now the words that came to Ning Fengji's mind were hidden manipulation. Salus had seen that recruiting them was hopeless, and clearly intended to beat down Shrek Academy's reputation from before. Perhaps the Elephant Armored School's methods today would be the same as Shrek Academy's last fight. What a Platinum Bishop! As he understood this point, Ning Fengji's complexion dropped immediately. Fortunately, he didn't see his daughter appear in Shrek Academy's current formation. At the same time, he sighed inwardly, hoping his protection wouldn't turn into a bad thing. Who won this competition was no longer important. Ning Fengji only hoped that the Shrek 7 devils wouldn't suffer any serious injuries. Even though the Shrek Academy team members were mentally prepared, as they truly saw their opponents, they couldn't help drawing a deep breath. Were they really human? When the Elephant Armored School's 7 members stepped onto the stage, the whole platform constantly trembled along with their pace. What stepped onto the stage basically wasn't 7 people, but 7 mountains. They were all black-clothed, and the shortest of the Elephant Armored Academy's 7 team members was already 2 meters tall. The tallest surpassed 2 meters 50. Standing in front of the Shrek Academy team, all of them had to look down. Compared to height, even more frightening was their weight. Estimating it by eye, Tang San guessed that the smallest one weighed more than 300 jin, while that tallest one perhaps exceeded 500 jin. The same black hair, shaved short on both sides, with only the hair in the middle combed into a strange ponytail, with black skin not much different from the clothes they wore. The 7 of them standing in a line was like a solid city wall, blocking the view of the Shrek Academy team. Standing in the middle was that particularly doughty giant. He took a step forward, and as his feet landed, the entire stage made a booming sound, shaking violently. Elephant Armored School Team, Captain, Hu Yan Li. 43rd Ranked Defense System Battle Spirit Ancestor. This captain spoke in a muffled voice, his fat seemingly quivering along with his voice. A pair of small eyes glared at Daima Bai, glinting ominously. Rather than taking it lying down, Daima Bai took a step forward. Even though his body weight wasn't enough to produce vibrations, his imposing manner was accurate to perfection. Shrek Academy Team, Captain, Daima Bai. 44th Ranked Power Attack System Battle Spirit Ancestor. Both teams, salute. The referee called out. Led by Daima Bai and Hu Yan Li, the altogether 14 competing members of both sides bowed to each other. The mood in the ring became serious in practically a split second. Qualifiers second round, first match, officially begins. The 5 simultaneous matches underway were pronounced started at practically the same time. Also at that moment, the 70 members of 10 academies in 5 matches simultaneously released their spirit rings. Suddenly, the entire Heaven Do Great Spirit Arena became dazzlingly beautiful. The cheers of the spectators also erupted at this moment. Spirit body enhancement, tool spirit summoning. Dazzling spirit ring light filled the air in an instant. The 7 direct disciples of the Elephant Armored School in front of the Shrek Academy team simultaneously threw off their jackets, exposing their fat. Very quickly, they used their body enhancement to show the audience why they took off their jackets. The originally already imposing bodies swelled up once again with explosive shouts of spirit body enhancement. Somewhat flabby fat unexpectedly stretched out, becoming exaggerated muscles. A layer of deep yellow keratin appeared over the skin, flickering with metallic luster. Making them seem even more inhuman was their noses extending, growing longer, and at the same time their upper lips rose, 2 fierce tusks extending more than 1 chi. The 7 simultaneously raised their right feet, then stomping heavily on the stage. The loud sound not only attracted the audience's attention, but at the same time left everyone worried whether the stage would hold up in front of such violent energy. The 3 in the middle all had 2 yellow and 2 purple spirit rings, and the 4 on the side each had 2 yellow and 1 purple. From the opponents, Tang San discovered that among Elephant Armored School disciples, the bigger their bodies the more powerful they were. Their strength could be determined by their outside appearance. In the VIP seats, Platinum Bishop Salus looked at the flesh mountain beside him. Hu Yan Zhen nodded at him, speaking in a low voice. Ali is the most outstanding disciple of my Elephant Armored School's young generation, my eldest grandson. His innate talent is even a bit better than mine in those days. I'm hoping he will one day be able to become the Elephant Armored School's first title Douluo. Hu Yan Zhen didn't try to conceal his voice, and not only did it reach Salus, but also the others in the first row, Emperor Zhu Yi, Ning Fengji and Gu Rong. Emperor Zhu Yi smiled faintly, saying, "With such a grandson, Schoolmaster Hu Yan is truly worthy of congratulations." Hu Yan Zhen laughed out loud, the sound shaking the VIP seats. "Your Majesty's praise is too much. For now let's look at Ali's performance. This competition, the Elephant Armored School's goal is the final 3. Emperor Zhu Yi calmly said. "Only, if I'm not mistaken, this time your grandson's opponents have 4 40th ranked spirit ancestors." Hu Yan Zhen stared blankly a moment. He basically hadn't even considered that his school's disciples would lose, and further adding that the stature of his Elephant Armored School disciples wasn't something other people could compare to, he naturally hadn't paid attention to their opponents. Now hearing Emperor Zhu Yi's words, His gaze fell on the Shrek 7 devils. Just as Emperor Zhu Yi said, apart from the evil eye white tiger furthest in front, besides the 2-3 spirit ring Jing Ling and Huang Yuan, as well as Xiao Wu, the other 3 people all also had 4 spirit rings. Especially Tang San's black 4th spirit ring was particularly attention-grabbing. Hu Yan Zhen looked shocked at Salus, but discovered Salus' expression was equally stunned. In the last match, Shrek Academy revealing 2 40th-ranked spirit masters had already shocked him enormously, and in this fight they actually added 2 more. In other words, they had concealed their strength in the first match. Very clearly, his estimation of this academy's strength had been somewhat lacking. Emperor Zhu Yi asked Ning Fengji at his side, "Schoolmaster Ning, you're quite familiar with this Shrek Academy. Do you know who the academy's dean is? I'm rather curious as to just what person could raise such outstanding disciples." Ning Fengji smiled. "Your Majesty, Shrek Academy's dean is called Flender. Perhaps you haven't heard this name, but you certainly heard about the triple nova that shone brilliantly in the Spirit Master world with their spirit fusion ability 20 years ago. They were called the Golden Iron Triangle. This Flender was the flying corner of the Golden Iron Triangle. This current Shrek Academy was founded by the 3 of them, and these children should be growing under the instruction of the Wisdom Corner, Grandmaster. The most outstanding of them is Tang San, Grandmaster's only direct disciple." Grandmaster, Emperor Zhu Yi didn't have any impression as he heard this name, but the expression of Platinum Bishop Salus to his side changed enormously. Even so much that he immediately undisguised passed a few low sentences to Heaven Elephant Hu Yan Zhen next to him. Hu Yan Zhen looked at him with shock, muttering, "But, the match has already begun, there shouldn't be enough time." Salus' expression immediately turned ugly, talking to himself. Why would it be him? Why him? This time, even Ning Fengji felt baffled, and couldn't keep from asking, "Bishop Salus, do you also know Grandmaster?" Salus returned to himself, expressionless. Who hasn't heard of the Golden Iron Triangle? Isn't this Grandmaster reputed as unparalleled in theory? His relationship with our spirit hall isn't common. I didn't expect he would end up in an academy. No wonder. Only he could cultivate such outstanding disciples. Ning Fengji stared blankly a moment. He understood the character of this Platinum Bishop Salus very well. Not only was this person obstinate and self-opinionated, but also petty and small-minded. He had already made explicitly clear the familiar relationship between him and Shrek Academy, but now he unexpectedly praised Grandmaster, and further had an anxious expression. There was definitely some secret here. Emperor Zhu Yi smiled. "Since the 2 of you both think so highly of this Grandmaster, we would like to experience his elegant manners. For now, let us look at the competition." Sure enough, while the several people in the VIP seats were opposing each other with needle and spear, the 5 qualifying matches had already officially begun. The 7 flesh mountains in front of Tang San's 7 hadn't launched any attack like the power attack system Spirit Masters in the last match against Heaven Du Imperial Academy's 2nd team. Instead, the 7 stood in a line, their first spirit rings simultaneously flaring, and step by step, steadily walked over. Under the effect of the first spirit rings, these 7 flesh mountains, originally deep yellow keratin, grew a lot more sparkling, as if each was covered in a layer of porcelain glaze. The 7 of them really were too enormous, and advancing from the center, they practically occupied half the diameter of the stage. Even though their pace was slow, with each step forward, their imposing manner would subsequently increase somewhat. Whether it was in physique or spirit power, they accorded the Shrek Academy's 7 enormous pressure. "Retreat," Tang San shouted. This time he didn't conduct his members to advance an immediate attack. The 2 power attack system Spirit Masters Daima Bai and Huang Jun, and close combat system Spirit Master Xiao Wu all withdrew quickly, the 2 agility attack system Spirit Masters Jing Ling and Zhu Zhuqing retreating on either side of Tang San. It was also at this moment that black-blue-silver grass appeared on stage. That black vine-like blue-silver grass quickly spread along the ground, swiftly scattering in all directions. One strand among them twined around the thick legs of an elephant-armored school disciple. But terrifyingly, the blue-silver grass after the growth of Tang San's 4 spirit rings unexpectedly could only make the opponent pause for a moment. The next instant, the blue-silver grass immediately emitted tearing sounds. The pupils of Tang San's eyes contracted. By this simple test he immediately discovered a lot of things. Not only did these elephant-armored school disciples have astonishing strength, and knew exceptionally well to use their advantage. This terrifying body weight was in no way a decoration. Not only could they rely on the power of their bodies to reduce spirit power consumption, but at the same time, after their bodies combined with their spirit power, they could erupt with even more frightful strength and defense. Even though his blue-silver grass was durable, a bit of twisting was insufficient to restrict the added terror of their strength after fully using their spirits. It clearly showed how scary their opponent's strength was. As a result of the stage being circular, the center where both sides first started was the widest area, but now along with the unceasing advancement of their opponents, the space the Shrek 7 devils had to use on either side was becoming smaller and smaller. In battle, the opponent's enormous bodies allowed him to control a much larger area than ordinary people. If their opponents were forced to where no space remained between them, then their strength could also be displayed to its greatest degree. This was also the reason why the elephant-armored School 7 didn't anxiously rush forward. They didn't want to expose the slightest gap. Even though there was space between the two sides at the moment, they still maintained their formation. They didn't need to catch all the opponents, as long as they could settle the agility attack system, and especially the auxiliary system members, it was already a success. Another side of defense was endurance. These 7 elephant-armored school disciples by far wasn't something those Heaven-Do Imperial Academy second stringers could compare to. Seeing that 4 of their opponents had spirit power that reached the 40th rank, they immediately used their most dependable strategy. On the Shrek side, nobody panicked. Everyone condensed their spirit power, quietly waiting for their team's soul to pass down the orders. Even though the 2 new members Huang Yuan and Jing Ling began to breathe quickly under the tremendous pressure, the calm of the 5 Shrek 7 devils spurred them to keep a calm heart. "Advance, 3 steps," Tang San shouted. Besides him and Oscar, the other 5 swiftly took 3 steps forward, their auras rising, clashing in the air with the pressure from the opponents. Among the 5, both Dai Mabai and Zhu Zhuqing surpassed the 40th rank, and their imposing manner didn't lose out to the opponents. 5 black lines of light shot out simultaneously, twisting around the waists of the 5 people, precisely Tang San's invented special formation technique, human meteor hammer. It was relying on this technique that the Shrek 7 devils once defeated the Emperor team. At that time their ranks were a step below their opponents. This time Tang San's blue-silver grass was a lot more durable than back then, and the length he could extend it also surpassed 50 meters, absolutely incomparable to that time. How much had this human meteor hammer's strength improved? "Little Ao, come." Oscar swiftly reached Tang San's side. Tang San flicked his wrist, stuffing a flying mushroom sausage down his throat, one hand grabbing Oscar and loading him onto his back. Immediately afterward, he leapt up, soaring straight into the air. The flying mushroom sausage took effect quickly, a set of transparent wings quietly appearing on Tang San's back. Just like that he brought Oscar flying into the air. "Soften," Tang San shouted once again. The 5 people who previously stepped forward immediately drew a deep breath, condensing their spirit power, making themselves as agile as possible. Among the 7, Zhu Zhuqing, Xiao Wu, as well as agility attack system Jing Ling were like gas, their bodies already almost weightless. Even though Dai Mabai and Huang Yuan were a bit heavy, they still weren't any problem. Under the effect of Tang San's mysterious heaven skill cooperating with controlling crane-catching dragon, he unexpectedly simultaneously sent all 5 into the air. Tang San once carefully researched the limits of Oscar's flying mushroom sausage, and discovered empirically that the flying mushroom sausage could support a weight of about 500 jin or so. The combined body weight of the 7 of them absolutely exceeded this number, but not by too much. After all, besides Huang Yuan and Jing Ling, the Shrek 7 devils were all still in their early teens, and only Dai Mabai's physique was a bit imposing. Under such circumstances, as long as everyone lightened themselves as much as possible, it was just in the range of what the flying mushroom sausage could support. This was also the key to their strategy. A major reason they didn't bring Tai Long was that he was too heavy. Otherwise, the impact Tai Long could have right now would even be a bit bigger than Xiao Wu. Tang San suddenly soaring up immediately brought an outcry from the audience. Even though there had been a few spirit masters with flight capability since the start of the qualifiers, there had been no one who, like Tang San, brought 6 people into the air. Relying on the blue-silver grass link to simultaneously bring the whole 7-man team into the air was astonishing to see. The fight between Shrek Academy and Elephant Armored Academy had originally already drawn close to 60% of the audience's attention, but now practically all the spectators focused on the direction. In the VIP seats, Emperor Zhu Yi cried out in surprise that Tang San actually has flight capability as well. Ning Fengji smiled faintly, saying, "I'd say this isn't his ability, but rather that auxiliary system spirit masters. I don't think they would do something pointless. With these people, there will inevitably be a reason." Oscar being carried on Tang San's back was equivalent to making him Tang San's housekeeper. Without hesitation, he immediately condensed a large recovery sausage and stuffed it into Tang San's mouth. The consumption had only just started, but he immediately helped Tang San recover in advance. The key to this match didn't lie in how the other 5 attacked, but in how Tang San executed his control. Suddenly seeing their 7 opponents all flying into the air, made the Elephant Armored Academy 7 who were just pressing forward stare blankly. How could they have expected that they would encounter such a situation on the stage? Just as Grandmaster said, their strength and defense were admittedly matchless, but that also came at the expense of speed. Agility attack system spirit masters weren't bad, at least they had ways to deal with them, but these flying type spirit masters no doubt had the greatest restraining potential to them. If everyone were on the ground, then the Elephant Armored School disciples could naturally display the features of their defensive strength, but with the opponents in the air, the part closest to their opponents were their heads. Even though their head defense also wasn't weak, they couldn't display that fat defense power their bodies had. More importantly, the 7 opponents simultaneously flying into the air immediately broke their rhythm. Tang San used both hands to control the 5 strands of blue-silver grass, and the 5 people below were like puppets. In a split second they left the attack range of the fatties. Tang San rotated half a turn in midair, throwing out the 5 human meteor hammers simultaneously, each of the 5 landing in a separate location below. The places the 5 of them fell were all surrounding the 7 opposing fatties, and at the same time, countless blue-silver grass released from Tang San as he used the binding ability on all 7 opponents. The whole process from everyone being sent flying to launching their attack was less than a dozen seconds. What Tang San somewhat didn't expect was that the Elephant Armored School's 7 disciples' reaction also wasn't a beat slow. The largest, Hu Yan Li, shouted loudly, and the 7 fatties swiftly gathered together, forming a back-to-back formation. At the same time they extended their palm leaf-sized hands to swat at the 5 people dropping from the air. Watching this scene, Tang San couldn't help being secretly alarmed. The defensive power of these 7 was astonishing, and with this kind of formation their defense was even more flawless. Breaking through their formation absolutely wasn't easy. This was just the scene Tang San wanted to see the least. The 5 strands of blue-silver grass pulled back Dai Mabai's 5 just as they were about to enter attack range, pulling the 5 back up. Tang San clearly understood that even though he grasped the opponent's greatest weakness, these fatties were extremely shrewd. Right now they were willing to take a beating in order to pull down even one of the Shrek Academy members. With that terrifying weight and strength of theirs, if they grabbed anyone, it was the same as breaking the whole human meteor hammer. Even though the people were pulled back, the blue-silver grass binding didn't halt. Pure black, Sharp thorned blue-silver grass twisted frantically around the 7 fatties, and in just a moment, they were densely bound. These blue-silver grass could be said to spread from Tang San's body, and the moment the binding completed, Tang San immediately discovered the problem. The thorns of the blue-silver grass was basically unable to pierce the other side's frightening skin, even so much that the highly toxic, corrosive and paralyzing poisons were unable to take effect. The opponent's defensive strength was even beyond his estimation. The Elephant Armored School's 7 disciples roared practically simultaneously, explosive force bursting out in a moment. That extremely tough blue-silver grass could be seen being slowly pushed open under that explosive strength, gradually rupturing. But Tang San also clearly saw the opponent's second spirit ring brightening simultaneously. He immediately made an accurate judgment. The opponent's first spirit rings were defensive, and their second spirit rings should be of the strength-boosting category. Blue-silver grass was the physical form of Tang San's spirit, and after the nourishment of 4 spirit rings, especially the added properties of that last 10,000-year spirit ring, this originally known as a trash spirit had long ago already become extremely durable. Not long ago, when Tang San experienced that melding with the wild blue-silver grass in his surroundings, his own blue-silver grass had also undergone a certain change. Even though the change was minute, its texture had become even finer. Right now, as it was twisted around the opponents, even with the fatty's astonishing strength, they still couldn't just throw it off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tang San counted silently. At 5 seconds, the 3 40th ranked team members on the opposing side managed to struggle free of the blue-silver grass. The most powerful, Hu Yan Li, even more needed only 4 seconds, and the other 4 who still hadn't reached the 40th rank, all needed more than 7 seconds to break free. Oscar once again swiftly stuffed his mushroom sausage in Tang San's mouth, simultaneously readying a big recovery sausage. After simply counting time, all sorts of information flashed through Tang San's mind, immediately proposing a second attack. 20 seconds, defeat Hu Yan Li, Tang San shouted, at the same time launching binding once again, his first, second, and fourth spirit rings flaring practically simultaneously. With the massive bodies of the 7 Elephant Armored Academy students standing there, they made practically ideal targets. Blue-silver grass swiftly twisted, bundling him up once again. At the same time, the 5 led by Dai Mabai landed swiftly, and under the effect of Tang San's controlling crane-catching dragon, simultaneously pounced at Hu Yan Li. Hu Yan Li snorted disdainfully, still restraining. Don't tell me this isn't a waste of spirit power. With the enormous bodies of the 7 people on his side, a few rounds of binding alone could substantially consume that control system Spirit Master's spirit power. Once he was unable to persevere and dropped from the sky, this match would be over. Want to defeat me? That might not be so easy. Volume 14. Elephant Armored School. Chapter 96. Limit Team Control and Terrifying Hell-White Tiger. The Elephant Armored School always relied mainly on defensive countering to attack. Now seeing the Shrek Academy about to launch an all-out attack, Hu Yan Li was happy more than alarmed. As long as he could deplete their spirit power, how could he fear defeat? 20 seconds. I want to see just how you'll restrain these brothers of mine for 20 seconds. Tang San very quickly used action to tell Hu Yan Li just how he would do it. At the same time as he launched binding, apart from Hu Yan Li, 16 strands of blue-silver grass erupted from below the feet of each of the other Elephant Armored 6, instantly condensing into a cage, precisely his 4th spirit ability, Blue-Silver Prison. And at the same time, his 2nd spirit ability, Parasite, launched, covering each of them in a thick layer of blue-silver grass, including Hu Yan Li. That it took 4 seconds to struggle free of one layer didn't mean it took 8 seconds to break out of 2 layers. The overlaid restraint ability was much stronger than Hu Yan Li had imagined. Apart from his head, right now his whole body was already covered in blue-silver grass. Ever since the start of the battle, Tang San had used his keen judgment and detailed planning to grasp control of the whole battlefield. Relying on the flying mushroom sausage, he as far as possible crippled the opponent's greatest advantage, and relying on his own 3 potent restraint abilities, he now also restrained the opponents below 20 seconds. This was already his lowest estimate for restraining the 6 people. Tang San swiftly swallowed a big recovery sausage, his face pale. He had not only used controlling crane catching dragon to precisely control the movements of his 5 teammates, but also released 3 great spirit abilities at the same time. This had consumed more than half his spirit power in practically an instant. Due to the 7 opponents' massive size, binding especially consumed a lot of spirit power. If they could throw it off another few times, Tang San would inevitably be exhausted. Fortunately, Tang San still had Oscar on his back, and under the unending support of his big recovery sausages, the spirit power Tang San consumed could be recovered to some extent. Tigers roar, cats cry, rattling bones, all sorts of sounds filled the air. 5 people simultaneously launched their attacks at Hu Yan Li's exposed head. Tang San's goal was very simple. Hu Yan Li was the most powerful of the opponents, and also the most important link. As long as they could defeat him first, then this fight would become a lot easier. The opponents didn't have a control system spirit master, so as captain, Hu Yan Li wasn't only the team's heart, but also their soul. Defeating Hu Yan Li would be an enormous mental blow at the opponent's morale. Even though Tang San had also determined that Hu Yan Li's defense was astonishing, even if it was even more powerful, it would still be impossible to endure the combined assault of 5 spirit masters at almost the same level as him for 20 seconds. From the moment both sides had released their spirits, Tang San had been searching for a weakness in the opponents. Just like when they dealt with the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan's Yu Tian Heng. But these fatties were really too good at keeping formation, and as a last resort, Tang San was forced to create this opportunity to defeat Hu Yan Li. In the VIP seats, Hu Yan Zhen's furious eyes opened wide, and he suddenly stood up. Watching the grandson he was most proud of about to come under the focused attack of 5 spirit masters, immediately made a powerful light fluctuate at the corners of his eyes. His lips buzzed a few times. To the side, Ning Fengji calmly said, "Schoolmaster Hu Yan doing this seems to be against the competition rules." He didn't need to know what Hu Yan Zhen was saying to understand that he used a voice compression technique to give instructions to his grandson. Hu Yan Zhen snorted, sitting back down in his seats. "I don't know what Schoolmaster Ning means. What did I do?" Ning Fengji smiled calmly, without uttering another word. After all, voice compression wouldn't leave behind any evidence. He also wanted to see just what directions Hu Yan Zhen could give that would let Hu Yan Li break this certain kill situation Tang San had created. However, Ning Fengji hadn't expected that the 2 words Hu Yan Zhen had passed to Hu Yan Li with voice compression could completely transform the situation Tang San had with great difficulty created. Hu Yan Li gave off an explosive roar, his 4th spirit ring suddenly flaring. Not only did it speed up the damage to the blue-silver grass around him, at the same time his skin changed once again, adding a protective layer of icicles. Hong! The first chop of the skeleton-incarnated Jing Ling's 3rd spirit ability Mad Battle landed on Hu Yan Li's head. In a flash, both his arms transformed into bone sabers erupted in several dozen strikes. But terrifyingly, his Bad Battle ability only left clouds of sparks flying over the opponent's head. Unexpectedly it was unable to cause the slightest bit of harm. Jing Ling even saw Hu Yan Li grin at him. Following tightly behind Jing Ling was Zhu Zhuqing. Her most powerful single-target attack, Hell Decapitation, instantly erupted. Both hands clasped, further adding the momentum of falling from above, relying on her more than 40th rank spirit power. This one attack by far exceeded what Jing Ling could compare to. At a tremendous explosive sound, even with Hu Yan Li's defense, both his legs still completely sunk into the ground under this one attack. A white mark was left in the center of his forehead, and the outermost layer of icicles ruptured instantly. Hu Yan Li's body also swayed once. In fact, when only passively taking a beating, not suffering any injuries from the full-strength attack of the similarly leveled Zhu Zhuqing, was already extremely amazing. Huang Yuan and Dai Mabai's attacks arrived practically simultaneously. Dai Mabai's White Tiger Light Wave and Huang Yuan's Furious Wolf Howl Bullet landed almost the same instant. And this moment was also just when Hu Yanli's outer layer of defense was broken, when he was at his weakest. When Dai Mabai launched his White Tiger Light Wave, he had already used White Tiger Vajra transformation, instantly boosting his attack power. If it wasn't for the rules forbidding killing the opponents, Dai Mabai would have used White Tiger Meteor Shower for this attack. However, something the Shrek Academy group had never anticipated occurred. Without any warning, Hu Yanli's head suddenly wore a helmet. That's right, definitely a helmet. An earth-yellow helmet that seemed conspicuously not dazzling. But it was such a helmet covering the whole head that stiffly resisted the combined attacks of both Dai Mabai and Huang Yuan. Hong, Hu Yanli's both feet and calves had sunk into the ground. In fact, this stage was built from meter-thick granite. Light scattered in all directions, and with a roar, the blue-silver grass twisted around his body disintegrated into thumb-long pieces, as he completely threw off all restraints. Dai Mabai and Huang Yuan, who were closest, could both clearly feel that this big fatty's strength had increased once again, and moreover increased to an extremely terrifying degree. Not only did his whole body swell another size, but even all 4 spirit rings around him shone simultaneously. Helmet. The rules of the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament clearly stipulated that contestants couldn't use any implements. The opponent couldn't fail to know this. Light instantly flashed through his mind, and in the air, Tang San's eyes immediately contracted. 2 words immediately appeared in his mind, and these 2 words were precisely what Elephant Armored School Master Hu Yan Zhen had just spoken to Hu Yanli with voice compression: spirit bone. Indeed, that helmet on Hu Yanli's head was a spirit bone. Spirit bones had 6 main slots: the head, the 4 limbs, and torso. This helmet proved Hu Yanli had one of those 6, a cranial spirit bone. This sudden appearance of a spirit bone broke Tang San's stratagem, but being capable of forcing the counterpart to use a spirit bone undoubtedly made all the spirit masters who understood what happened gobsmacked. Everyone knew the value of spirit bones, each one sold for astronomical figures, and they only appeared for sale very rarely. If it was revealed one had a spirit bone, it would no doubt become the target for some people's greed. Even though this Hu Yanli's strength was pretty good, he still only had 40-something ranked spirit power. Preserving his spirit bone in front of some senior experts definitely wouldn't be easy. Were it not for fear that continuous attacks to the head would cause irreversible after effects to his grandson, Hu Yan Zhen absolutely wouldn't have allowed Hu Yanli to use this spirit bone. Not even if it cost them the match. But in front of the situation Tang San had created, in order to avoid being beaten into an imbecile or suffer serious head trauma, Hu Yan Zhen had no choice but to make the call. This grandson of his could be said to be the future of the whole Elephant Armored School. The ordinary spectators might not identify the helmet, and low-level spirit masters might not guess it, but how could the crowd in the VIP seats fail to see it? Platinum Bishop Salus looked at Hu Yan Zhen next to him with astonishment, an envious light flashing through his eyes. But Ning Fengji by contrast said with a beaming smile, "Congratulations, Schoolmaster Hu Yan. Your grandson possessing a spirit bone at such an age is truly worthy of celebration. But, Schoolmaster Hu Yan, be a somewhat mindful. By all means don't fall for the plots of ambitious people." Hu Yan Zhen's face was flat as water. Even though Hu Yanli had dispelled the crisis, he still wasn't the least bit happy. Having a spirit bone exposed in such a public place with so many people absolutely wasn't a good thing. He snorted coldly, "Schoolmaster Ning doesn't have to worry about my Elephant Armored School's disciples." Gu Rong at Ning Fengji's side was somewhat unable to endure watching the schoolmaster being contradicted twice in succession, and was about to flare up. But Ning Fengji pulled him down, raising a finger to the stage, "Watch the competition." As Hu Yan Li threw of the restraints, his eyes were practically spouting flames. Even though he had used the spirit bone to resist the attacks, he was still dizzy. 2 spirit masters over 40th rank as well as 2 spirit masters over 35th rank all striking the same place. Were it not for the spirit bone, he would already have keeled over long ago. Now relying on the additional properties from the spirit bone to break free of the blue-silver grass, how could he still hold back? His whole skeleton made a burst of cracking noises, as he raised both massive hands to grab directly at the last person to pounce, Xiao Wu. Tang San's group control had now reached 10 seconds, and the other 6 elephant armored school members were still unable to break free. If at this moment, Hu Yan Li hadn't chosen to attack Xiao Wu, and rather rely on his defense to withstand another attack, then helping his comrades break free of the restraints, then the outcome of today's battle might truly have been hard to tell. However, his head dizzy from the successive attacks made him unable to keep as calm as usual, and all he could think of right now was to first deal with the enemy. Watching the counterpart grab at her, Xiao Wu was calm and unhurried, both legs shooting out simultaneously, separately landing on Hu Yan Li's arms. In terms of agility, how could this old fellow compare to Xiao Wu? Drawing on the rebound from both legs, Xiao Wu soared into the air, and under the help of Tang San's controlling crane-catching dragon, she was instantly whisked into the sky. Xiao Wu had disappeared, but the other 4 already had their feet firmly planted on the ground after the attack. By now Hu Yan Li was already in a kind of half-berserk condition, and charged at the 4 without the slightest hesitation. His 3rd spirit ring suddenly brightened, and his obese body actually leapt into the air. His whole body was covered by a layer of dazzling purple light, and he directly locked down the one who hurt him the most, Zhu Zhuqing, pressuring her from the air. The instant she was locked in on, Zhu Zhuqing discovered that she was suddenly unable to move, and faced with the massive opponent, her only choice was to block. The Elephant Armored School after all didn't like the Strength Clan choose all their spirit rings in the same attribute. Along with defense, they also had their attack abilities. The pressure kill that Hu Yan Li now used was one of those. If locked down by this spirit ability, the opponent's legs would temporarily lose the ability to move, able only to block head-on. This was also the greatest characteristic of this 1000-year spirit ring of his, and it was the most suitable ability found after generations of research by the Elephant Armored School. With their enormous bodies falling from the sky, and further adding their spirit power, the effect could well be imagined. As long as the opponent was unable to move and had to block, then let alone agility attack system spirit masters, even strength-type spirit masters might not be able to resist. Of course, this ability still had a condition in order to use, namely that the opponent was within 10 meters of the user. Unfortunately, the no longer clear-headed Hu Yan Li had forgotten one thing. Indeed, Zhu Zhuqing was unable to move right now, but don't forget that her movements weren't all under her own control. Blue-silver grass acted just in time, as Tang San easily pulled Zhu Zhuqing away from her original position over towards Dai Mabai, and under his control, Jingling and Huang Yuan also directly flew over to the other still restrained Elephant Armored School disciples. Hell White Tiger. Tang San's calm voice reached Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mabai's ears, and the two immediately leapt at each other. By now, Tang San had already temporarily withdrawn the blue-silver grass from them. This was Tang San's carefully prepared finishing move. The Shrek 7 Devils possessed 2 most powerful hidden abilities. One was Tang San's external spirit bone 8 spider lances, the other was Dai Mabai and Zhu Zhuqing's spirit fusion ability. At this moment, Tang San needed to control the entire battlefield, and subsequently it was clearly unsuitable for him to use 8 spider lances. And the reason why he had replaced Tai Long with Zhu Zhuqing for this fight was this Hell White Tiger spirit fusion ability. If they could rely on just the mid-air human meteor hammer to win would be best, but if that didn't work, they still had Dai Mabai and Zhu Zhuqing's super attack. Tang San believed that even if the elephant armored school had even more powerful defense, alone it was still impossible to resist Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mabai's combined attack. In fact, after the two of them had reached the 40th rank, their spirit fusion ability had also subsequently evolved. Hong, a depression was forcefully smashed into the stage, as Hu Yan Li's enormous body was practically embedded in the ground. With him as the center, cracks immediately spread to practically every corner of the stage. The terrifying might of this pressure kill was evident. "Co Wu," Tang San shouted, and with a flick of his wrist, a pink ray of light flew accurately in front of Co Wu. Co Wu opened her mouth and bit down on precisely Oscar's newest fourth spirit ability, stimulating pink sausage. With no need for words, relying only on the pull of blue-silver grass, Tang San clearly showed Co Wu what to do. Her target was the smallest member of the opposing team. At this moment, Tang San's battlefield control capabilities were vividly exhibited. First by saving Zhu Zhuqing from the danger of Hu Yan Li's pressure kill, and at the same time directing two people to use spirit fusion ability, taking Oscar's stimulating pink sausage and using his hidden weapons techniques to throw it to Co Wu, and furthermore delivering her to the weakest opponent. This whole process was accomplished practically simultaneously. Even Tang San himself didn't notice that right now he had already used Heart Separation Control's 3-aperture governing heart. A tiger's roar erupted from Dai Mabai's throat, and along with the roar, his body that was already under the effect of white tiger Vajra transformation swelled up once again, white fur mixed with black tiger stripes rushing out all over him. Zhu Zhuqing was completely covered with a faint black light. Moving swiftly, she unexpectedly seemed transparent, as she quietly floated towards Dai Mabai. Dai Mabai revealed a faint smile, twin pupils uniting, both arms spreading, welcoming Zhu Zhuqing's illusory figure. Their two silhouettes quietly fused into one. A 3-meter-wide beam of black light instantly soared up from where they met, a terrifying tiger's roar filling the whole arena. At this moment, not only did the spectators look on with stunned expressions, but at the roar, even the teams competing on the other 4 platforms stopped moving for a moment, subconsciously turning to look in the direction of the black pillar of light. The burst of black light dissipated, and at the same time the figures of Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mabai vanished along with it. Where they previously stood, now only remained the graceful figure of an enormous white tiger. The white tiger was transparent, white-furred with black stripes, and purple double-pupiled eyes that coldly watched the dust-covered Hu Yan Li crawling out of the floor. Last time the hell-white tiger had been 8 meters long and 2 meters tall. This time, the hell-white tiger reached an even more terrifying length of 10 meters, and 3 meters high. Even though the elephant armored school's fatties each had astonishing builds, in front of this enormous white tiger they still seemed insignificant. Unlike last time, it didn't use the spirit fusion burst ability Hell White Tiger Break immediately after appearing. Instead, that enormous white tiger charged directly at Hu Yan Li. From its wide back a pair of enormous wings unfurled, and its massive body suddenly glided through the air. Under the terrifying pressure of the winged tiger, even after using the spirit bone, Hu Yan Li still felt it hard to breathe. Last time they used this spirit fusion ability, Zhu Zhuqing still hadn't reached the 30th rank. But now, both she and Dai Mabai had already passed the 40th. The spirit fusion ability grew along with the strength of the users, and to them right now it was no longer as simple as a single attack. That immense white tiger gracefully and leisurely pounced at Hu Yan Li. By now, Jing Ling and Huang Yuan's attacks simultaneously poured down on the head of an opponent, as the blue-silver prison around him instantly withdrew. And on the other side, Co Wu also showed a bizarre change. As the blue-silver prison there equally withdrew, Co Wu was inundated in a layer of dazzling pink. Her entire tender body seemed to grow somewhat, causing her sleeves and the trouser legs at her calves to rupture. She landed extremely gracefully on the shoulders of the weakest elephant armored school member, her feet pressing at his neck in a bar shape. The next moment, waist bow launched. With Co Wu's original strength, it would be impossible for her to throw the opponent, even with waist bow. After all, the opponents were far too heavy, and their strength so astonishing. However, under Tang San's careful calculations, after eating a stimulating pink sausage to temporarily boost strength, and further adding her superior spirit power compared to the opponent, it was just enough for Xiao Wu to deal with this weakest elephant-armored school disciple. Watching Xiao Wu's still slender body turning in midair, bringing along that massive flesh mountain, then again heavily slamming him into the ground, the forces this elephant-armored school disciple's neck had to endure could well be imagined. Unfortunately, right now everyone's attention was still fixed on that enormous hell-white tiger. Otherwise, Xiao Wu's attack would definitely have left a deep impression in the hearts of a great many people. Hu Yanli naturally wouldn't wait helplessly. Right now, along with Tang San's spirit power being consumed, his brothers were already starting to break free of the restraints. Relying on his 500 jin body weight, Hu Yanli crouched in place, using both arms to block the two immense tiger claws swinging at him. As a disciple of Elephant-Armored School, one of the 7 great schools, he naturally knew about the characteristics of the spirit fusion ability. The power of the spirit fusion ability was enormous, but it also required immense spirit power expenditure. He knew that as long as he could withstand 2 attacks, even if he was defeated, 2 of the opponent's 40th ranked powers would lose all fighting strength due to spirit power exhaustion, and at that time, once his brothers had recovered, they would certainly take the final victory. Hu Yanli's idea was correct, but unfortunately, he underestimated the might of Dai Mabai and Zhu Zhuqing's hell-white tiger. With extremely high harmonization, as well as both having strength over the 40th rank and their complementary spirits, hell-white tiger didn't only unite their strength, but moreover amplified it enormously. That was an immense gap that couldn't be bridged by a single spirit bone. Let alone Hu Yanli. Even if Tang San and Hu Yanli stood together, and both used their spirit bones, it still might not be enough to withstand this spirit fusion ability. 2 tiger claws swung down simultaneously, causing an enormous explosive sound. Hu Yanli only felt an irresistible force, feeling explosive pain all over his body, and immediately afterward, flying through the air, he no longer felt anything. The hell-white tiger used the momentum from this strike to dash forward, hell-white tiger break, launching. That tremendous silhouette, like lightning, struck the other 2 40th-ranked elephant-armored school disciples who had just freed themselves from the restraints. More explosions, and those 2 elephant-armored school disciples were thrown away by the strike of the hell-white tiger, directly striking the stage. And at this moment, the illusory form of the hell-white tiger also vanished, exposing the 2 equally pale bodies already returned to normal, Dai Mabai and Zhu Zhuqing. The pair's spirit body enhancement had already worn off. The hell-white tiger's attack didn't take long, but it left an incomparably profound impression in the minds of all the spectators. One claw had sent Hu Yanli directly into the stage, penetrating the granite surface. Then the hell-white tiger had further sent flying 2 40th-ranked team members that had fully used their 4th spirit abilities, that icicle-like protective layer. In practically a split second, it had disintegrated the strength of the elephant-armored school's 3 strongest members. And at this time, under the frantic attacks of Jing Ling and Huang Yuan, one elephant-armored school disciple had already been struck unconscious before he could even struggle free of the blue-silver grass. And Xiao Wu had also used the power boost from the stimulating pink sausage to easily throw the weakest member into unconsciousness, also unable to throw off Tang San's blue-silver grass. The human meteor hammer had now been completely rescinded, and Tang San didn't eat a 3rd flying mushroom sausage, bringing Oscar down from the sky. Tang San threw the several big recovery sausages in his hands, tossing them to the Shrek Academy members. The 7 formed up in a circle, with the last 2 opponents in the center. The elephant-armored school disciples had commendable fighting spirit, despite only remaining 2 of them, and moreover ones who hadn't reached 40th rank of cultivation. They didn't have the slightest intent of backing down. Clearly, They also saw that the Shrek's 7 devils were equally at the end of their strength. Continuously using large-scale control abilities was a huge spirit power drain on Tang San, and after using the spirit fusion ability, their 2 strongest attackers, Daima Bai and Zhu Zhuqing, were temporarily unable to use their spirits. And Jing Ling, Huang Yuan and Xiao Wu might not be able to break the defense. Therefore, after the 2 fatties looked face to face, they launched their attack abilities without the slightest hesitation. Just like Hu Yan Li, the third spirit abilities of these 2 was also pressure kill. And the targets the 2 fatties chose were Tang San and Xiao Wu. The audience might not have caught that throw Xiao Wu used just now, but standing on the stage, they had still seen it with incomparable clarity. They didn't want their enormous bodies to be flung through the air like that. With great weight, the fall would also be heavy. The reason their comrade had fainted wasn't because he was unable to bear the strike, but rather because the bones in his neck had been displaced by the whiplash caused by his own enormous weight and Xiao Wu's waist bow, thereby causing unconsciousness. Therefore, when the 2 launched their attack, they chose the targets they thought were the greatest threat, Tang San and Xiao Wu. As for Jing Ling and Huang Yuan, they believed that the 2 didn't have the attack power to break through the defense. After all, by now the restraints were already gone. However, they neglected one person, although this person was the most unremarkable one on the Shrek Academy team. From the start to the end of the fight he hadn't participated in the battle. He also didn't have any attacking strength, but his presence enormously strengthened the Shrek Academy team's battle endurance. That was the 41st ranked food system tool spirit master, Big Sausage Uncle Oscar. Continuously using recovery sausages let Tang San constantly replenish his spirit power. Even though the consumption was enormous, he still wasn't without fighting strength. Tang San's estimate of the Elephant Armored School was very accurate. Superb defense, superb strength, but low agility, few means of attack, without auxiliary support, without control capability. When dealing with such an opponent, as long as they crushed the most powerful members, they would inevitably lose the ability to turn the tables. Being without support spirit master reduced the likelihood of suddenly recovering their strength. After all, it was impossible for each one to possess such an unlikely treasure as spirit bones. Tang San and Xiao Wu were instantly locked down by the 2 enormous fatties, and even though Jing Ling and Huang Yuan immediately attacked them, now that the Elephant Armored School disciples were free of their restraints, they could show their full defensive power and didn't pay the 2 attackers any attention, leaping high up with all their might, pressuring Tang San and Xiao Wu. Having their feet locked down didn't mean their hands couldn't move. Tang San didn't panic, and with a wave of his right hand, a strand of blue-silver grass flew out, accurately twisting around Xiao Wu's waist, pulling her over. And at the same time, Tang San half crouched in a horse stance, drawing a deep breath, as white light rushed out from his body, mysterious heaven skill already gathering in his palms. Xiao Wu and Tang San hadn't been cooperating for just 1 or 2 days, and being pulled to Tang San's side, she immediately astonishingly flipped into a handstand, both legs pointing up. Right now, the lock on her had already been removed due to Tang San's pull. Xiao Wu had both legs towards the sky, and Tang San held both hands up high. Watching that fatty tumbling towards them, the 2 exerted strength simultaneously. Waist bow launching, Xiao Wu accurately planted both feet in the fatty's belly, instantly retarding his downward momentum, and when her legs even under the effect of waist bow was unable to bear that enormous weight, Tang San's hands already supported that fatty's abdomen, launching controlling crane catching dragon. It was the martial skill Tu Liang pushing 10,000 Jin. Of the 2, one was 41st ranked and one 38th ranked, even though the fatty's weight and this ability were both overbearing, against the cooperation of the 2, and moreover Xiao Wu's waist bow amplifying effect, it lost all threat. The downwards momentum instantly became a horizontal movement, and under the precise control of Tang San's controlling crane catching dragon, that enormous body flew sideways, just striking the other fatty as he was about to hit the ground. A loud bang echoed, and just at this moment, a yellow-green ball of light quietly spread, wrapping up the two inside the instant they collided. Their enormous bodies immediately became like a giant bottle gourd, crashing heavily to the ground. By now, the entire Elephant Armored Academy Team's 7 members had already completely lost the ability to continue the fight. That 100% toughness boost of the spider web restraint wasn't something that could be thrown off in a short time. Even with their astonishing strength, it was impossible. After all, both of them only had 30-something ranked spirit power. As the Shrek Academy's 7 members once again encircled the two, the referee had no choice but to declare the winner of this match. Second round, first qualifiers match, Shrek Academy defeats Elephant Armored Academy. Bang! A bursting sound in the VIP seats, as the Elephant Armored School Master Hu Yan Zhen crushed the handrails on his seat, bell-like big eyes looking like they were about to shoot flames. He was unresigned, he was really unresigned. He obviously felt it was impossible for Shrek Academy to break the Elephant Armored Academy defensive formation led by his grandson. But they had still done it. The erupting strength of the spirit fusion ability Hell White Tiger was admittedly tremendous, but under ordinary circumstances, Hu Yan Zhen believed that 3/40th ranked Elephant Armored School children headed by his grandson still wouldn't be unable to resist it. As long as they had dispelled that spirit fusion ability, the outcome of this fight wouldn't have been in doubt. But in such a fight that he had thought couldn't be lost, the Elephant Armored School was still defeated. How could they lose? Let alone Hu Yan Zhen being unable to understand. Even Platinum Bishop Salus next to him stared blankly. Even if 4 of Shrek Academy's 7 members had strength over the 40th rank, the Elephant Armored School still had 3 people on this level, and Hu Yan Li had used a spirit bone. By all reason, that was enough to make up the difference with the spirit fusion ability. Further adding that the 7 Elephant Armored School members all had the first-rate Spirit Diamond Mammoth, their overall strength clearly surpassed the opponents. But how had they still lost? Ning Fengji's face was already covered with a smile. Looking at the Shrek Academy 7 cheering their victory, inwardly he couldn't help sighing in praise. The eyes of the bone Douluo at his side were also currently big and bright, muttering to himself, using a point to break the surface, fostering strength and avoiding weakness. The effect of a control system Spirit Master in a team fight really is formidable. Volume 14, Elephant Armored School, Chapter 97, Spirit Master World's Extreme Limit Flow and Balanced Flow. Even though Gu Rong spoke softly, everyone nearby heard him. At the words, using point to break the surface, Platinum Bishop Salus immediately understood. Against the Elephant Armored School's 7 united in a defensive formation, let alone Shrek Academy, even with all the competing Spirit Master teams, it would still be difficult to break. How could such a tyrannical defensive formation be broken? Tang San gave the answer. Under Tang San's control, the Shrek Academy 7 had first risen into the sky to break the opponent's pressure, and immediately afterward, Tang San's 3 great control abilities had reduced the Elephant Armored School to passive defense. Under such circumstances, the Shrek Academy team had simultaneously unleashed their most powerful attacks on Hu Yan Li. The strongest point was often also the weakest point. The so-called weak point indicated Hu Yan Li's impact on the whole Elephant Armored Academy team. If Hu Yan Li was broken, then the whole Elephant Armored Academy's formation would immediately break. Without their backbone, their defense was no longer perfect. At this moment, as the soul of the team, Tang San had controlled his team members to launch the most suitable attacks in the most suitable locations. The Hell White Tiger Spirit Fusion ability was admittedly powerful, but without Tang San's control to let them act at the most suitable moment, it would have been unable to cause such a large impact. The Elephant Armored School's 7 disciples gathered with great difficulty. It had to be said, Hu Yan Li with a spirit bone truly had abnormal defense. Even though he had been slapped into the ground by the Hell White Tiger, when he crawled out, he just seemed a bit dispirited. He hadn't suffered any true injuries, and was just a bit dizzy. Both sides formed up anew to salute. Hu Yanli looked at Tang San with burning eyes. "You're very fierce, only, before long, we'll definitely meet again." Even if his body was well developed, his mind wasn't simple. Even though he had been beaten by the Hell-White Tiger, he clearly understood just whose hand had defeated him. Tang San smiled calmly, saying, "You're welcome at any time." Both sides bowed simultaneously. The difference was that the eyes of the Shrek Academy's 7 members all expressed the excitement of defeating a powerful enemy, while the gazes of the Elephant Armored School's 7 were brimming with unreconciliation. From start to finish, they'd all had a kind of helpless feeling. Encountering such an opponent was somewhat difficult to bear. Even though they'd lost this fight, as Hu Yanli said, they still believed their strength was greater than the Shrek Academy. Just like when the Shrek 7 Devils defeated the Emperor team. However, they'd still forgotten that wisdom was equally a part of strength. The strength of spirit power and spirit abilities didn't represent everything. The crowds was already boiling the instant the fight ended. At the start, only a small number of people shouted Shrek Academy's name, but just like a lit fuse, more and more joined in. As the Shrek Academy 7 stepped down from the ring, the crowd had already forgotten that there were still several matches that hadn't ended, and a cheer of "Shrek" rose from the stands like a wave. The majority of the match weren't spirit masters, and just like amateurs following the crowd, the Shrek Academy team had given them the most dazzling match. Whether it was Tang San using the universal sky flow tactics at the start, or later that extremely astonishing Hell-White Tiger, or just when the spirit rings appeared, everything gave the audience an extremely profound impression. With the extreme disparity in body size, the audience had seen Shrek Academy as the weaker side, and ordinary people could most easily sympathize with the weak. When the Shrek Academy ultimately prevailed over their opponents, in the eyes of the audience, it was a classic battle of winning from a position of weakness. "Xiao Wu, help me a bit." Tang San used a quiet voice that only the people next to him could hear. Xiao Wu was inwardly alarmed, discovering that Tang San's uniform was already soaked through with sweat, and his face was even paler than Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mabai. Hastily she pulled on Tang San's arm, using her strength to support his weight. Even though Tang San had eaten Oscar's big recovery sausage, his consumption had really been too large. The weak feeling of spirit power exhaustion constantly attacked his mind. If not for his unwillingness to let the opponents and the audience notice, he would have been unable to endure long ago. This match would seem to have been under Shrek Academy's complete control from start to finish, but for the sake of this victory, Tang San had still spent too much. Relying on the flying mushroom sausage to fly, in order not to be encumbered by the weight, he had been forced to focus his mysterious heaven skill with all his strength. At the same time he had still had to pay attention to each change on the battlefield, using controlling crane catching dragon to pull his companions to attack, attending to each corner there. This didn't just consume spirit power, it was an even greater drain on the mind. Afterward, Tang San had simultaneously released his first, second, and fourth control spirit abilities, on more than one occasion. His spirit power had already been substantially drained. Even though the big recovery sausage could help him recover a bit, it was by no means complete. Especially in that final moment. Even though it seemed like only 2 opponents remained, and they were still 7, the strength gap hadn't been as wide as that. Of their 4 40th ranked powers, besides Oscar who couldn't attack, only Tang San still had a speck of spirit power left. And Jing Ling, Huang Yuan and Xiao Wu would have found it difficult to break the defense of the 2 rested opponents. For the final victory, Tang San had first used controlling crane catching dragon to support the enormous pressure of the falling opponent, and then fully used his already substantially depleted spirit power for spider web restraint. That moment had not only exhausted his mysterious heaven skill internal strength, but had even overdrawn it. Now that the fight was already over, Tang San even found it somewhat difficult to walk, and had no choice but to draw support from Xiao Wu. The 7 stepped down from the stage, and 3 gentle lights already quietly fell on Tang San, Dai Mabai and Zhu Zhuqing. The 3 felt a warm flow enter their bodies, immediately rousing their spirits and restoring some color to their faces. The light spread from behind the shelter of Ma Hongjun's plump body, and Ning Rongrong poked her head out from behind him, giving everyone a small smile. After all, it was still the Shrek 7 devils that had the most tacit rapport, and they had clearly seen what happened on the stage, so just as the 7 stepped off, Ning Rongrong immediately used her 9 treasure-glazed tile pagoda spirit power boost. Even though it was only temporary, it could at least help the 3 condense a bit of spirit power. When overdrawn, this kind of boost could easily make up for the overdrawn part. Of course, that was with the premise that it greatly consumed Ning Rongrong's own spirit power, but the battle was already over, and she didn't worry about the expenditure. Altogether 11 people stood together in a ring. Dai Mabai took the lead to extend his right hand, immediately followed by Tang San, Xiao Wu, Zhu Zhuqing, Oscar, Huang Yuan, Jing Ling, Jiang Zhu, Ma Hongjun, Ning Rongrong, Tai Long. 11 gazes focused on the same spot. The smiles on their faces grew as they shouted, "Shrek will win." Passing this fight, the 4 new substitute members finally felt like a true part of the team, and at the same time they also truly recognized the power of the Shrek 7 devils. Further adding that they knew the Shrek 7 devils' ages, they had a heartfelt admiration for these 7 junior brothers and sisters. The one smiling the widest was Tai Long. He had already on more than one occasion regretted originally provoking Tang San. Wasn't this following the path to one's own doom? From these 2 fights, he could already clearly see that when Tang San had beaten him, he had absolutely started off leniently. Again thinking of how even his father's 50th ranked strength hadn't been enough to beat him, Tai Long was even more ready to prostrate himself in admiration for this young master. Originally when Tai Tan had let Tai Long follow Tang San as a bodyguard, Tai Long's heart had still been unwilling. At that time he had still considered Tang San as a rival in love. But now he felt exceedingly happy with his grandfather's decision. Even if he even more honestly saw just how outstanding Tang San was, following such a young master, there would be no need for concern over his own future. Quickly changing into their own clothes, the Shrek Academy 11 took advantage of the spectators still not having come out to swiftly leave the Heaven Do Great Spirit Arena. In the space of a breath, they had returned to the academy. However, the Heaven Do Great Spirit Arena didn't calm just because they left. The mood in the arena had already become incomparably boiling, and cheers of Shrek continued even until the end of the other 4 matches. Shrek Academy was of course not the only team to take 2 successive victories, but the opponents they had defeated one after another was the Heaven Do Imperial Academy 2nd team, symbolizing the Heaven Do Empire, and the Elephant Armored Academy subordinate to one of the 7 great schools, Elephant Armored School. Their powerful opponents and Shrek Academy's offbeat clothing no doubt made him the focus of the entire audience. In the stands, Flender also hadn't expected him to cause such a big sensation. But, with his meticulous mind, he had already begun to calculate how to gain the most benefit from the uproar. In the VIP seats, Heaven Elephant Hu Yan Zhen had already calmed down, and sat there as placid as water. Platinum Bishop Salus at his side seemed to have a somewhat pondering appearance. Emperor Zhu Yi smiled the whole time, occasionally saying something to 7 treasure-glazed tile school master Ning Fengji in a low voice. Behind them, the 3 Heaven Do Imperial Academy board members were watching Prince Zhu Xing with incomparably furious gazes, and that prince, just 2 days ago heavily reprimanded by Emperor Zhu Yi, was already completely speechless. Even if his insight had been even worse, seeing just how promising the Shrek Academy team was, inwardly he couldn't keep from regretting that he even listened to 4th Prince Zhu Beng and drove them away. In fact, this glory should originally have belonged to the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. In a corner of the competitors' stands, there was a hazy expression in the eyes of the team wearing the Moon White Blue Sunshine Academy uniforms. They hadn't expected that the opponents they had teased would turn out to be so powerful. Even opponents like the Elephant Armored Academy couldn't beat them. In fact, Their opponents in the first match had been the Elephant Armored Academy, and the result had been a crushing defeat. Led by Spirit Sage Shi Nian, the goal of this Blue Sunshine Academy team was the ranking competition and the finals. They'd already lost one match, and if they continued losing, how could they reach their goal? They naturally understood that their jibes at the Shrek Academy from before would be repaid in full in the competition. If by some chance they were completely broken like the Heaven Do Imperial Academy second team, they would be finished. These Blue Sunshine Academy team members were all exceptionally outstanding, but even more outstanding students would only get one opportunity to compete in the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament. How would they wish for an opportunity like this to slip from their hands? Unlike the Elephant Armored School, they didn't have absolute confidence in advancing through the tournament. Shi Nian stood with both hands held behind him, sweeping his gaze over the team. You don't have to think about it too much. First, obtain victory in your second match. Constantly increasing the number of victories is what you should do. As for the Shrek Academy problem, I will deal with it. Listening to Shi Nian roused the spirits of the whole Blue Sunshine Academy team. They were quite clear on the character of this Academy Vice Dean, and for a moment their smiles all became twisted. 1 week passed very quickly. The Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament qualifiers also smoothly completed 6 rounds of matches. In that time there were 3 academies that got 6 successive victories, and Shrek Academy was among them. Besides the trouble with the Elephant Armored Academy in the second round, the next 4 opponents were easy wins. Of the Shrek 7 Devils, only Tang San, Daima Bai, and Xiao Wu appeared. Their opponents also didn't reveal any Spirit Masters over the 40th rank. The other 2 academies that earned 6 consecutive victories were the Thunderclap Academy and the Godwind Academy. Today was the 8th day of the competition, and also the start of the 7th round of matches. Shrek Academy's opponent had only obtained 2 victories, Othello Academy, and it was also because of the weak opponent that this time they didn't fight in the central ring. Because the fight in the central ring was the highlight of the day's matches, a collision between 2 powerful teams at the same time as them, the Elephant Armored Academy and the Thunderclap Academy. In the rest area, Oscar leaned his head against the chair. It's really good not having to go on stage. We can leisurely watch the matches. Laughter escaped from Jiang Zhu. How about you take my place? Your strength is already exposed anyway. Oscar immediately shook his head, saying, how could a spotless beautiful youth like me talk about going on stage? Ning Rongrong snorted unhappily. What beautiful youth, it's a big sausage uncle. While speaking, she still sneakily pinched the flesh at his waist, causing the previously rather leisurely person to immediately sit up straight, drawing in a deep breath. Jiang Zhu chuckled to the side. At this moment, Ma Hongjun stretched out his head. Sister Jiang Zhu, how about I take your place? Even if I'm a secret weapon, if you're tired, I can still help you out. If you get exhausted, it's no good. Jiang Zhu pinched the cheeks of Ma Hongjun, who was half a head shorter than her. Little fatty should still be the most obedient. Later, big sister will buy you something tasty. Leave this match to me. For the sake of ultimate victory, this still isn't tiring. Moreover, this is also a chance to gain real combat experience. Ma Hongjun's face had a naive look, repeatedly nodding. Oscar and Ning Rongrong looked at each other, both having difficulty holding back smiles. Since everyone started training and competing together, Fatty had always hovered around Jiang Zhu, showing an obedient darling appearance. Even though this fellow wasn't particularly handsome, that pork face was still somewhat cute, and under his deliberate cover-up, Jiang Zhu unexpectedly didn't catch on to his true appearance. But the Shrek 7 Devils were after all the best of brothers, and the other 6 were all couples. Watching Fatty all alone, they couldn't easily expose him. Adding that Fatty's evil fire problem had also been settled. If he wanted to pursue Jiang Zhu himself, even if the others wouldn't support him, they also wouldn't stir up trouble. Fine, don't be noisy. Even though our opponents this fight aren't strong, we still can't be careless. A lion still needs to use all his strength to chase a rabbit. If by chance we encounter a team with hidden strength, it's very possible we'll stumble into a ditch. Dai Mabai showed off the proper responsibilities of a captain, reminding everyone to prepare for the match. Just at this moment, Grandmaster walked in from outside. Dai Mabai is right, it's very possible some academies will hide their strength. However, not this time. Your opponents have already forfeited. Forfeited. The whole Shrek Academy team couldn't help looking at Grandmaster in astonishment. Grandmaster smiled faintly, saying, "The strength you've showed off has made some academies with insufficient strength forfeit. This is quite ordinary. No need to be so astonished. You can also just use this chance to go watch the match between Thunderclap Academy and Elephant Armored Academy. These two teams are both capable of threatening you. Know yourself and know your enemy, only then can you be ever victorious. Let's go, I'll take you to the competitor's stand." Not needing to compete meant a day of rest. In such a high-density round-robin system as the qualifiers, this was undoubtedly an extraordinary benefit for the Shrek Academy. Everyone immediately cheered, following Grandmaster towards the lobby outside. At this moment, they encountered a group of people entering from outside. Moon-white uniforms, those familiar, blue sunshine, characters, as well as that gloomy old man Shi Nian in the lead. It was the Blue Sunshine Academy team. The gazes of both teams met in midair, and everyone could see sparks flying from the eyes of their counterparts. Dai Mabai even further raised his hand, pointing a forefinger at that leading youth, afterwards making a beheading gesture. The Shrek Academy didn't have any good impression of the Blue Sunshine Academy, and Grandmaster didn't even give them a glance, directly leading the Shrek Academy group away. That old man Shi Nian stopped walking a moment, a strange color flashing in his eyes. He turned his head and glared at his own team, stopping some who wanted to move. Both sides crossed and passed. Tai Long clenched his fist, issuing bone-cracking sounds. "I'm really looking forward to facing them." His words gave voice to all the Shrek Academy members' thoughts. Fatty couldn't help saying, "Fuck, what do these fellows have to be arrogant about? As if they have a winning hand, they couldn't even take down the Elephant Armored Academy. Third brother, let me go up when we meet them. I'll definitely let them learn what's called real strength." Grandmaster calmly said, "All right, you all keep calm. They're not opponents that should concern you. Over these past few days of competition, I've made some investigations into all the competing teams. Among these teams, only 5 are capable of threatening you. Only these 5 might have some hidden strength. Of these 5, you've already faced the Elephant Armored Academy. Considered a difficult victory. They also have the smallest chance of still having hidden strength. After all, Hu Yan Li's spirit bone has already been revealed. I've heard the Elephant Armored School Master Heavenly Elephant Hu Yan Zhen has been together with these clan disciples every day. Perhaps he's concerned about Hu Yan Li. Besides the Elephant Armored Academy School, the other 4 academies that might threaten you are the Thunderclap Academy, Godwind Academy, Skywater Academy, and the Blazing Academy. From their names, you should also have discovered that these 4 academies each represent 4 formidable capabilities. Thunder, wind, water, and fire. Add the Elephant Armored Academy representing the defensive strength of Earth. In the Heaven Do Empire Academy scene, they're collectively known as the 5 Great Elemental Academies. Each academy has a certain degree of backing. The Elephant Armored Academy's backing is the most direct. It was founded by the Elephant Armored School. The other 4 academies equally have unconventional backgrounds. Behind the Thunderclap Academy is actually the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan, only their support is comparatively indirect. Only some branch family disciples enter there, directly related disciples are fostered within the clan. Only Yu Tian Heng entered the Heaven Do Imperial Academy. But even the branch families of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan have great strength. You can't look down on the strength of this Thunderclap Academy. I don't know what the backgrounds of the Godwind Academy, Skywater Academy, and Blazing Academy are, but I can sense that these 3 academies also has deep backgrounds. They each have their own characteristics, and they're each very difficult for you to deal with. The advancement quota from the qualifiers is only 5. Therefore, you must plan for passing the qualifiers, then, one of these 5 academies will inevitably wash out. The 5 elemental academies have a close relationship, and if my guess is correct, they will inevitably move. Therefore, in the later matches you will encounter stronger and stronger opponents. You hold your fate in your own hands. If you want to advance to the finals without trouble, then the best way is to obtain victory in each match in the qualifiers, entering the next stage with a total win record. Yes, the Shrek Academy team agreed loudly. Leaving the rest area, everyone's gazes first floated towards the stage. Right now, the spectators all around were constantly booing. Tang San, puzzled, asked Grandmaster, "Teacher, what's going on? Why is the audience reacting so much?" Grandmaster said with a wry smile, "Isn't it because of you? Your opponents forfeited. There are a lot of spectators who came especially to see all of you compete. When you don't appear, they will naturally be dissatisfied." In the stands, at least 1/3 of the spectators were dressed in green, or perhaps it should be called snot green. Even Grandmaster and Lu Erlong had to acknowledge Flender's sense for finance, but they could understand even less how the former Shrek Academy could fail like that. Ever since the Shrek Academy team had caused a sensation, Flender had found partners to begin mass production of Shrek Academy uniforms and dumping them on the market. Moreover, each uniform was embroidered with the name of a team member. Among them, Tang San's uniform sold the most, followed by Dai Mabai and Zhu Zhuqing. In just one short week, Flender had ruthlessly dredged up quite a sum on these uniforms. These 2 days he had begun thinking about making team mascots for sale. He was so busy he had completely handed over all tournament matters to Grandmaster and Lu Erlong. They didn't know who first saw the Shrek Academy group leave the rest area, but immediately, a large amount of spectators began to shout the word Shrek, and the mood in the arena grew a lot more enthusiastic. If this had been a spirit fighting match, the Heaven Do Great Spirit Arena would have invited the Shrek team on the stage for a fight no matter what, as soon as they saw such a surge of enthusiasm. Unfortunately, this was the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament, and they didn't have that authority. They could only regretfully watch the Shrek Academy's absence from this day's matches. The first round of matches had already begun. Grandmaster immediately pointed out which of the 10 teams competing below were the Godwind and Skywater teams. What made Tang San astounded was that all the Godwind Academy's team members had flying abilities. This was no doubt highly headache-inducing, and the Skywater Academy's team consisted entirely of women, and each was a beauty. Their opponents still hadn't acted, and they all already looked half-charmed. What was the point in continuing a match like that? In the shortest time possible, without hurdles, the Skywater Academy had already obtained victory. The Godwind Academy's method of attack was very simple. All the members circled in the air like 7 goshawks, constantly swooping down to attack. Their grasp of rhythm was exceptional. With each attack, they struck with the 5,000-ton force of thunder. After 3 rounds of dive attacks, the opponents no longer had anyone who could stand. Observing these 2 matches, Tang San said in a low voice to Grandmaster next to him, "Teacher, why aren't these 5 great elemental academies matching up elements and competing together? Whether it's the Elephant Armored Academy or these 2 teams, they're all the same single attribute spirit masters. Even though this means one aspect will become very powerful, in practice, the weak points also become glaringly obvious. If they can't display their strong points, doesn't that leave them without the strength to follow up?" Grandmaster sighed lightly, saying, "This is the difference between Heaven Do Empire and Star Luo Empire. Heaven Do Empire's advanced spirit master academies have always relied mainly on these 5 great elemental academies. This time around the Heaven Do Imperial Academy has the Emperor team, which is pretty good. But in the previous several tournaments, the ones capable of entering the top 3 from Heaven Do Empire's side has always been one of these 5 elemental academies. Just as you said, the style of the team members from these 5 academies all tend to the extreme. Entirely different from the balanced nature the Star Luo Empire strives for. This has both advantages and detriments. When they encounter enemies that can't restrain their strong points, they can often destroy the opponents in a single blow. But if they encounter opponents that can restrain him, they will also frequently lose in a short time. But in all these years, these 5 great elemental academies has never had the slightest notion of changing their policies. Do you know why this is? Tang San blankly shook his head. Grandmaster spoke in a low voice, because this is the struggle between the Spirit Master World's 2 great streams of thought. One faction stands for balance, one faction stands for extremism. The extreme faction believes that a Spirit Master's capabilities should as far as possible follow a pure route, letting their strength grow in only a single direction, to become as outstanding as possible within this one direction. But the balanced faction believes a Spirit Master's capabilities should develop harmoniously, balancing attack and defense. These 2 great streams of thought have always been warring. The Spirit Master world of the Heaven Du Empire largely favors the extreme faction. You've also seen that your Clear Sky School's Strength clan is a typical example. And the Clear Sky School's 4 subordinate clans also have another 3 great extreme limit follows. You will no doubt come into contact with them in the future. But the Star Luo Empire's Spirit Masters largely follow the balanced route. Perhaps they have a bit less burst power, but they also have a lot fewer weaknesses, and their follow-up capabilities are also more outstanding. Then Spirit Hall. Does Spirit Hall follow one stream? Tang San asked. Grandmaster lowered his voice. Spirit Hall has never expressed support of any side. Spirit Masters of both streams of thought enter Spirit Hall, but strangely there has never been any internal conflict between them. Our Shrek Academy is actually considered to be following a half-balanced, half-extreme limit route. Or you might say, extreme individuals, balanced as a group. After many years of research, this is what I believe to be the most suitable route to cultivate. Individual strength, or a bit extreme, is comparatively preferable. This can let one's strength increase to the maximum. As for later lacking endurance of having weak points, that can be completely complemented by relying on teammates. In a team, if each person can be expert in one extreme ability, and complement each other, then this team will succeed. Strength will inevitably be above equal level teams. Do you see what teacher means? Tang San said in a flash of understanding. So it's like that. Extreme limit flow and balanced flow each have their characteristics. Then in other words, for all these years, balanced flow has always held the advantage. Grandmaster laughed grimly. No, I should say it's the fusion flow that's held the advantage. I'm not the first person to propose fusing the extreme limit flow and balanced flow. The ones who truly raised this proposal was Spirit Hall. Only, Spirit Hall doesn't show off this idea, but each team Spirit Hall has sent to participate in the competition has used it. Consequently, the champions of the previous several Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament have also all been from Spirit Hall. Tang San frowned. Since Spirit Hall knows these mysteries, why doesn't it take the initiative to come forward? With their authority in the Spirit Master world, they could completely. Grandmaster shook his head. This involves politics, influence, and all sorts of interests. It's not as easy as you think by far. You're still young. It's fine if you don't pay attention to these things yet. What you must do now is to improve your own strength as far as possible. If you want to take the championship, you only have one true opponent. That is the team dispatched from Spirit Hall. Even though I can't be certain just what degree their strength has reached, I think that their ferocity will certainly be above the Emperor team and the 5 great elemental academies. Spirit Hall's true strength is far greater than anyone imagines. As he spoke, a terrified light flashed unconsciously through Grandmaster's eyes, as if he had thought of some frightening scene. Tang San suddenly raised his head, saying, "Teacher, I'll go back to the academy first." Grandmaster looked startled a moment. "You're not watching the competition?" Tang San nodded. "My 3-aperture governing heart still isn't skillful." "You're right. Rather than researching others, it would be better to strengthen myself." The strength of these 5 great elemental academies should all be similar to the Elephant Armored School. Even though they're strong, just as you said, If we went out with our full strength, defeating them wouldn't be challenging. In order to face our true opponents, it would be best to raise our own strength. Over this week, besides competing, Tang San had carried out special cultivation every day. His 3-aperture governing heart was cultivated completely while fused with the surroundings. Communicating with the wild blue-silver grass in the forest each day had already become a mandatory course for him. Continuing for a week, he had discovered that his spirit power promotion speed had clearly increased, and his blue-silver grass spirit had also quietly changed in some way. Tang San couldn't say what the internal change was, but he was certain it was completely in a beneficial direction. Right now his control of blue-silver grass was even more harmonious, each strand of blue-silver grass spreading with a thought. Further adding the effect of 3-aperture governing heart, even though his spirit power hadn't increased, Tang San could clearly feel himself progressing in control capability. Volume 14, Elephant Armored School, Chapter 98, Soul Chasing, Life Taking, Yama's Invitation. Tang San always worked hard at cultivation, never stopping. This kind of cultivation by communing with wild blue-silver grass made him feel as if he'd discovered some secret. Just what it was would have to be seen after a time of cultivation. When Grandmaster heard Tang San's explanation, he smiled faintly. Fine, then you go back first. Never mind them, these days of matches have been exhausting. Let them rest. Change your clothes before you leave, and mind your safety on the way. Yes, Tang San smiled and agreed. Grandmaster's words brought him a fatherly kind of concern and warmth. Faintly saluting Grandmaster, he didn't bother the others who were watching the matches, and silently left through the back. The Shrek Academy group were all watching the matches with keen interest, and nobody noticed Tang San's departure. It was instead on the other side of the competitors' viewing platform that a pair of gloomy eyes all along attentively followed Tang San, and as Tang San disappeared from the platform, that cold gaze also vanished. Changing into proper clothes, Tang San slipped quietly out of the Heaven Do Great Spirit Arena. Right now, besides some people who hadn't gotten tickets and some scalpers, the area outside the Great Spirit Arena was calm. Leaving the Great Spirit Arena, Tang San stepped quickly in the direction of Shrek Academy. Right now his mind was deeply pondering how he could become even stronger, and also the mysteries of the blue-silver grass changes. It was still morning, the warm light from the bright sun giving people a comfortable feeling. Tang San quite liked immersing himself in sunlight, and while contemplating the cultivation problem and walking by feeling, his whole body relaxed, unspeakably comfortable. For some reason, Tang San felt that today the road seemed a bit long. Though he had been immersed in pondering the heart separation control skill, he felt he should have already arrived at the academy. But raising his head to look, it seemed he was still quite a ways from the academy. Could I have been walking slower today? Tang San frowned, speeding up once again. Walking and walking, Tang San's steps suddenly slowed. Vaguely, he already felt something amiss. The sunshine clearly shone on him, but that warm feeling was already gone. In its place, a faint gloomy and cold feeling quietly spread from all around. Slowing to a stop, the light at the corners of Tang San's eyes immediately became vigilant. Nothing around him seemed to have changed. An endless stream of pedestrians passed around him. The distance from here to Shrek Academy wasn't very far. Could it be that I was oversensitive? Tang San turned his head to look in the direction from which he came, his gaze sweeping across the pedestrians around him, but he didn't discover anything wrong. Everything was quite ordinary. Concentrating, Tang San raised his foot once again, stepping forward, mysterious heaven skill unconsciously condensing. He trusted his own senses, and since his tempering in the ice and fire yin-yang well, these senses had become exceptionally sharp. That keen intuition made the unease in Tang San's heart constantly grow. His calm demeanor kept him from speeding up once again, instead slowly walking forward. At the same time he spread his awareness as far as possible, looking for the slightest clue in his surroundings. After walking a short time, Tang San suddenly stopped, his expression already serious. Wrong. There was definitely a problem. Even though his senses hadn't discovered any issue, Tang San's mind was meticulous. From the first step until now he had altogether walked 605 steps. Under ordinary circumstances, he should already have reached the Shrek Academy gate. But right now it seemed there was still a short distance to the gate. Perhaps there would have been a change in his pace, but that change absolutely wouldn't have been so large. Even though he didn't know how this situation came about, Tang San immediately went on the alert. A godly zhuge crossbow falling into his grasp, and he directly summoned his blue-silver grass, not paying any attention to the pedestrians nearby. From that trace of cold air, a faint killing intent seeped out. That was a spirit murderous enough to threaten his life. The surroundings suddenly became very still. Those proper street sounds from before quietly faded away at the same time. The scenery in front of him also became misty, everything turning indistinct at the same instant. A faint silhouette gradually became clear about 10 meters in front of Tang San. Worthy of being Shrek Academy's most outstanding disciple. You really are very vigilant. Unfortunately, you discovered it too late. That was a white-clothed old man, a person Tang San had met more than once. It was that Blue Sunshine Academy team's coach, the 72nd ranked spirit sage Flender once warned him of Shi Nian. Seeing this person, Tang San couldn't keep his heart from falling lower and lower. Quietly watching Shi Nian, he said, "So it's Blue Sunshine Academy's teacher. I don't know whether you might have stopped me here for some advice." Shi Nian smiled calmly, saying, "No advice, I just need you to disappear." Tang San coldly said, "For the Continental Advanced Spirit Master Academy Elite Tournament." The corners of Shi Nian's mouth showed a trace of a cold smile. "I've always been looking for an opportunity these last few days. Unfortunately, you were always together with the other Shrek Academy students, leaving me unable to act. But today you still gave me this chance. It really is a pity you're not one of my Blue Sunshine Academy's disciples. You want to kill me?" The pupils of Tang San's eyes contracted slightly. Shi Nian snorted coldly, "You can only blame yourself for being too outstanding. Even though the Shrek Academy team is strong, its true strength is precisely you. As long as you disappear from this world, our Blue Sunshine Academy will have the chance to advance." Tang San laughed grimly. "You think that by killing me, your Blue Sunshine Academy can beat our Shrek Academy?" Shi Nian spoke indifferently. "If killing you won't do it, I'll just keep killing. Until I've killed enough. Perhaps that student called Dai Mabai is suitable next." Tang San looked at the hazy surroundings. "You're going to do it here. Don't forget, this is an open street. Once you've killed me, don't think you can stand up in the Spirit Master world." Shi Nian smiled, the expression making his wrinkles deep enough to trap houseflies, a pair of cold eagle eyes flickering with cold light. "Since I decided to act, I've long since made thorough preparations. You're hoping your relation to the 7 treasure glazed tile school will save you. Don't worry, I wouldn't leave behind evidence for them. Look, is this really a street in Heaven Do City?" The hazy scene in the surroundings suddenly became clear, and Tang San discovered to his shock that he stood in a desolate area outside of the city. Turning to look around, he could vaguely see the top of Heaven Do City's city walls. He judged that this should be a small grove outside the city. Tang San reacted quickly, a sonorous sound erupting from the long-ago prepared godly zhuge crossbow in his hand as soon as the surroundings became clear. 16 sharp iron source crossbow bolts instantly smashed into Shi Nian's chest with overbearing penetrating power. Light flickered, and the 16 crossbow bolts disappeared. However, Tang San's expression became even more serious. No blood. Yes, even though the 16 bolts entered Shi Nian's chest, not a trace of blood flowed out. The 16 crossbow bolts seemed to have disappeared in midair, they didn't even make another sound. Shi Nian, somewhat startled, looked at the godly zhuge crossbow in Tang San's hands. "What's that? Such a powerful weapon. Is it a spirit tool?" Tang San didn't reply, only quietly watched Shi Nian. Shi Nian smiled, and this time his smile seemed quite relaxed. "Among people your age, you're no doubt very powerful. Even I haven't seen a more remarkable young spirit master. Unfortunately, the gap between the two of us can't be bridged by the word talent. Your weapon is pretty good, but unfortunately, everything you see right now, the position of things, they're all part of my brutal dream. Even though I let you see the true scene just now, it was still an illusion. Within my brutal dream, I'm the ruler of everything, let alone some of the 40th ranker like you. Even spirit masters of the same rank as me would be unable to break free. Tang San's expression became ugly, withdrawing the godly Zhuge crossbow in his hand into 24 moonlit bridges. Tang San, do you know what the greatest pleasure in my whole life is? Shi Nian's smiling expression suddenly became somewhat eccentric. If it were to be described, perhaps the word perverted would suit him the best right now. What? Tang San weakly asked. Shi Nian smiled slightly, saying, in this life, what I like the most is seeing my opponents go insane within my brutal dream, until they die. When I'm about to see a youth regarded as a genius degenerate like that, I'm already excited. Do you have to kill me? Isn't there any chance to save myself? Tang San weakly asked. Shi Nian's expression suddenly became severe. Since I've let you see me, do you think I would still let you go? There's no use struggling, everything's already without any meaning to you. Next year today will be the anniversary of your death. If people have souls, then, use your soul to watch Blue Sunshine Academy destroy the qualifiers, entering the next stage. Tang San didn't say anything else, but sat cross-legged on the ground. Blue-silver grass formed naturally, deploying into his surroundings as a slowly spiraling defense. Shi Nian laughed out loud. Do you believe you can resist my spirit like this? Young man, you really are too naive. If my brutal dream was so easy to resist, I wouldn't be worthy of the title Spirit Sage. Wait and see. You'll die in extreme suffering, and this suffering will be brought on by yourself. Shi Nian's voice gradually weakened, the surroundings becoming hazy once again, as if he had already moved away, already left. Tang San sat motionless on the ground, quietly condensing his spirit power. Because of the blue-silver grass hovering around him, from the outside it was very difficult to see just what kind of expression he had right now. The surroundings began to change, and Tang San discovered to his shock that the blue-silver grass circling around him under his control seemed to disappear. Even though he could feel its existence, there wasn't a trace of it in his line of sight. The surrounding scenery changed, no longer that small grove from before, but a precipice. An incomparably familiar precipice. Hell's Peak. How come I'm at Hell's Peak? Tang San's originally calm eyes suddenly opened wide. He had left behind far too many memories in this place. Several meters ahead was an abyss with clouds and mist rising in spirals, and behind him, 10 white silhouettes gradually grew distinct. Lowering his head, Tang San clearly saw that his clothes had changed. That enormous Tang character told him a lot. A dream? Don't tell me that everything in the Douluo continent was a dream. That in the end I'm still that Tang Sect disciple who offended the sect rules. Tang San stupidly looked ahead, becoming utterly perplexed. Those 10 silhouettes gradually becoming clear completely blocked all routes of retreat. Familiar and indignant faces gradually appeared in front of him. Tang San, you've actually stolen the sect's mysterious heaven treasure record. Your evil crimes overflow to heaven. Tang San, Tang Sect raised you, taught you, what you've done is detested by men and gods. One by one, the voices constantly grew in Tang San's mind, those faces also constantly grew. Very quickly, those 10 Tang Sect elders were already in front of him, surrounding him. Elders, listen to me. Tang San couldn't help saying. There's nothing that can be said. Tang San, your crimes are great, your evil extreme. You will take the sect's most severe punishment. Tang San could no longer move his 4 limbs, simultaneously detained by 4 elders. One of them had already raised his hand, internal Big Dipper key spilling out of his palm. The palm struck his arm. Tang San emitted a blood-curdling scream, his entire left arm shattering into thumb-sized fragments. Pain, enlarged tenfold, instantly spread through his brain, his entire body spasming violently. Immediately afterward was his right arm, and both legs. In front of the elder's internal Big Dipper key, the bones of Tang San's body were continuously smashed, until not one intact bone remained. However, he still wasn't dead. His whole body constantly convulsed, but no matter how strong the pain was, his mind still worked. A working mind meant he completely endured each painful sensation that came. The elders' faces gradually dulled, and they left Tang San on top of Hell's Peak, all the bones in his body in pieces. They told him they would leave him there to scream for 7 days and 7 nights, to die from the eagles and falcons. Tang San's eyes had already become hazy. The violent pain constantly swept through him, making his entire body jerk and twitch. The scene in front of him was still Hell's Peak, but another silhouette began to take shape. Slender, graceful, long scorpion braid, charming young face, it was Xiao Wu. At the same time as Xiao Wu appeared, so did another person, a 40-something uncle, a vulgar uncle whose every bone had been disintegrated by Xiao Wu. Bula, Xiao Wu. Tang San wanted to shout, but he couldn't utter a word. He didn't understand. Why would Xiao Wu and Bula be here together? Bula's one hand tightened around Xiao Wu's neck, and he looked at Tang San with a cold smile. And on Xiao Wu's face was grief and unwillingness. Ji, help me, help me. Xiao Wu did her utmost to struggle, but no matter how she tried she was unable to escape the strange Uncle Bula's grasp. Making Tang San almost weep blood was that Xiao Wu's clothes were being torn off piece by Bula, exposing skin like suet white jade. Apart from watching Bula's coarse big hands start to wander over Xiao Wu's body, watching his mouth constantly drool and smile evilly, Tang San couldn't do anything. Blood began to drip from the corners of his eyes, but with all his bones broken, right now he could only look on helplessly as Xiao Wu was disgraced. Xiao Wu's eyes were brimming with despair and hatred, and this despair and hatred were unexpectedly completely aimed at Tang San. No, don't, Tang San wanted to shout, wanted to get up, but no matter what he said he was unable to move. In a moment, Bula's evil hand already stretched towards. Little beauty, since you can't resist, I'll enjoy it slowly. Uncle loves you. Ha 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 ha. Bula's voice was as unpleasant as a night owl, each word like the point of a needle, piercing Tang San's heart. No, a heart-tearing, lung-rending scream resounded in Tang San's mind. He had already gone completely mad. However, the scene before his eyes became even more clear. Bula's nauseating panting, Xiao Wu's despairing gaze, it was all magnified in his 6 senses. Shi Nian leaned against a large tree, his 7th spirit ring constantly releasing a dazzling light, his face covered with a cruel and perverted sly smile. Just 10 meters in front of him, Tang San lay convulsing violently on the ground, blue-silver grass spiraling around him. Shi Nian basically didn't need to look with his eyes, he could clearly sense that Tang San was already on the verge of collapse. I haven't had the pleasure of torturing someone to death for a very long time. It's a pity on such a young genius, who let you go against me. Very well, I want to see just how you'll die. I really want to see it. Just what kind of illusion is he experiencing right now? My 7th spirit ability, Nightmare, can only bring out what you fear the most in your heart. What is it that this genius youth fears? The convulsions of Tang San's body among the blue-silver grass had gradually weakened. He was only lightly twitching. The coiled blue-silver grass gradually slid to the ground, and Shi Nian could clearly see Tang San with a deep red face, a trickle of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. So what if he was a genius? He still died most painfully within my brutal dream. The smile on Shi Nian's face became even crueler. It really is a pity. If my strength could reach title Douluo, I could have seen everything he experienced within my spirit. That would have been even more perfect. Heaven do Great Spirit Arena. While she was focused on watching the match, Xiao Wu's right hand suddenly trembled, a burning hot feeling in her chest. With astonishment, Xiao Wu stretched a hand inside her chest, pulling out the unbreakable as diamond yearning heartbroken red. The yearning heartbroken red seemed to have made a fantastic change. The flower was glittering with faint red light, and a burning hot draft hit her in the face. What was this? Xiao Wu stared blankly. She didn't know why, but looking at the red light on the petals, an intense unease welled up from the bottom of her heart. Turning her head, she searched for the person who concerned her the most. However, she discovered that seat was already empty. Blood-colored light heralded disaster. Xiao Wu's heart instantly tightened. Where did little San go? She nervously asked. Her loud voice simultaneously stunned the Shrek Academy group. Grandmaster said, "Little San said he'd go back to cultivate first." Little San's in trouble. He's definitely in trouble. Xiao Wu's hands clutched the yearning heartbroken red, without the slightest hesitation running outside. Ning Rongrong looked in the direction Xiao Wu ran. What's up with Xiao Wu? Didn't Grandmaster say little San went back to the academy? What can happen in Heaven Do City? No matter what it is, we'll go take a look as well. Dai Mabai also stood up, chasing after Xiao Wu. The Shrek 7 devils were like siblings, and everyone got up one after another. Even though they didn't believe Tang San would be in any trouble, just in case they still moved as a team. The illusion still continued, and vulgar Uncle Bula prepared to move to the last step, already loathsomely stuck to Xiao Wu. The whole scene constantly grew in Tang San's eyes. That heart-tearing, lung-rending pain seemed to tear his heart into shreds. At this moment, the blood-red-eyed Tang San suddenly changed. What changed was his eyes. Instantly, the blood red in his eyes suddenly disappeared, and purple golden light shot out, that light instantly shattering the Xiao Wu and Bula in front of him. The illusions surrounding him practically disappeared in an instant. Left hand clapping the ground, his body shooting up, Tang San made a half-turn in the air, his right arm flinging out in this turn. Those purple golden eyes of his just met with the stupefied gaze of Shi Nian. A noiseless black light had already arrived in front of Shi Nian without warning. As a spirit sage, Shi Nian reacted extremely quickly, but at this moment it was already too late to dodge. Both his arms rose in that practically impossible moment, his spirit power extremely condensed. His left arm tingled, as that black light already entered within. He hadn't obstructed it even when he didn't hesitate to injure his body to urge his spirit power to the limit. Peng, Tang San was like a deflated rubber ball, his body spinning in midair fell heavily to the ground, gasping for breath in great mouthfuls. The light in his eyes had already recovered to normal. He used one hand to strenuously raise himself from the ground, and the other to wipe the bloodstain from the corner of his mouth. Even though he had already blocked that black light, Shi Nian's gaze was still lifeless, muttering, "No, this is impossible. You're only a 40th rank spirit ancestor. How could you break my 7th spirit ability?" Tang San looked coldly at him, leaning on a nearby tree, only with difficulty managing to stand. "In this world, nothing is impossible. You've lost." "Ha ha ha ha," Shi Nian laughed wildly. "I've lost. You're such a tiny brat, but your mouth is unexpectedly big. Even if I don't know how you saw through my 7th spirit ability, Nightmare, do you really believe this is enough to defeat me? Really too ridiculous. With my 72nd rank spirit power, even if I didn't use any spirit abilities, that still isn't something you could guard against or restrain. Even if you've broken my ability, the conclusion hasn't changed. Only, before you die, I'll give you a chance. I'm very curious as to how you broke my Nightmare divine ability. Tell me, and I'll let you die a bit happier." Tang San stood there leaning against the tree. "You're not qualified to know. You're just an idiot ghost. When Yama calls for your death at midnight, who dares keep you until morning?" "Good. Bye." Shi Nian first looked distracted, but immediately afterwards, his face suddenly became grotesque, his entire body standing there rigidly. Raising his right hand, pointing at Tang San, he wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come out. Both his eyes seemed as they were about to pop out of their sockets. Tang San still calmly looked at his opponent, As for everything that happened in front of him right now, it seemed he had anticipated it long ago. With a peng sound, Shi Nian's body fell to the ground. Black blood flowed from his eyes, ears, nose and mouth, his entire body already permeated with a layer of black blood spreading on the ground, seemingly constantly leaking out of his body. Gradually, including skin and bones, Shi Nian's body actually vanished like smoke within that black. Was Shi Nian's death really so mysterious? No, of course not. Heaven is impartial. Something like luck is only relative. His death was by Tang San's hand, or perhaps it should be said his death was by Tang San's plan. Shi Nian, a 72nd ranked spirit sage, could never have suspected that Tang San's purple demon eye was the nemesis of all illusions. If it was the original purple demon eye, perhaps it would still have been unable to break Shi Nian's 7th spirit ability due to the difference in spirit power between them. However, after Tang San had taken the full moon wearing autumn dew, his purple demon eyes had become like piercing eyes. Let alone a 7th spirit ability's illusions, even a 9th spirit ability, as long as it was an illusion, would be unable to deceive his eyes. As soon as Tang San had discovered something was weird, he had secretly applied purple demon eye to carefully examine everything in his surroundings. Shi Nian had believed Tang San was trapped in the illusion, but in fact, Tang San had always known where he was, only he didn't act from the start. The difference in spirit power from 41st to 72nd rank was really far too great. Tang San knew that even if he wanted to escape, it wouldn't be easy. Therefore, from the time Shi Nian revealed himself to begin killing him, he had created his opportunity, creating an opportunity to kill the opponent in one hit. Tang San knew that was the only chance he had to survive. Therefore, he always waited. Even when he suffered such painful torment in the illusion, he still endured silently. Only the moment Xiao Wu was truly about to be disgraced did he erupt. Even though that wasn't the optimum opportunity Tang San wanted to find, that moment was already more than he could bear. With Tang San's intelligence, wouldn't he be unaware that the shroud of blue-silver grass would be unable to protect him in the illusion? No, of course not. He didn't use that blue-silver grass to protect himself, but rather to block Shi Nian's line of sight. Sheltered from Shi Nian's gaze, Tang San took out one thing from 24 moonlit bridges, the only thing that could turn the tables in this situation. 3rd ranked of Tang Inner Sect hidden weapons, soul-chasing, life-taking, Yama's invitation. He didn't take out his mechanical class hidden weapons, and he didn't take out that wide area cluster soul-chasing ball. Because Tang San knew he would only have one chance. If he failed, then with the difference in spirit power between them, he would die even if his opponent didn't use his brutal dream spirit. Besides Yama's invitation, Tang San couldn't think of any other weapon that could penetrate the opponent's defense. He didn't even use any control ability to lock down the opponent, because there was basically no need. Partly because Tang San basically didn't have enough spare spirit power to use spirit abilities, and secondly, would Yama's invitation need to lock down the opponent? If it was like that, how could this hidden weapon be 3rd ranked in Tang Sect? And how would it be famed as Yama's invitation? That faint black light was condensed with Tang San's entire spirit power. After reaching the 40th rank in his cultivation, he possessed the strength for one attack. Originally at the Ice and Fire Yin-Yang well, Tang San had refined 3 Yama's invitations. And now, their terrifying efficacy had been revealed. Yama's invitation had a 2-tiered effect, also known as one invitation kills twice. Poison, undissolvable poison. Even if one cut off the limb the instant the poison entered the body, they would still be unable to prevent the poison's instantaneous spreading. Even if it was Tang San himself, when handling Yama's invitation he had to boost his mysterious jade hand to the limit, not daring easily touch it. Besides the poison, even more frightening was the structure of Yama's invitation. Immediately after entering the body, it would disintegrate and spread through the veins, and simultaneously also follow the blood vessels to enter the heart. This was, one invitation kills twice. Yama's invitation left no survivors. Even Tang Sect itself didn't have any antidote. That didn't mean there was no way of removing Yama's invitation's poison. Everything in the world had a counter, and naturally there would be antidotes for poisons. However, Yama's invitation really spread far too fast. Even if there was an antidote, there would be no time to use it. As Yama's invitation entered the body, one would only feel a slight tingle. It didn't cause any pain, and once one discovered something was wrong, it was already time to die. Even with Shi Nian's 72nd ranked spirit power, he was still only able to say a few words before he had completely turned into a puddle of black liquid. Tang San didn't leave right away, since at the moment he lacked the strength. How would Yama's invitation be so easy to use? Condensing inner strength to a point, just to the limits of what Yama's invitation could endure, and only then releasing it, that was the only way it could ignore defense. Any defensive Big Dipper key was unable to obstruct the attack of Yama's invitation. This was where it was the most terrifying. Further adding a particular technique, and dodging became almost impossible. Perhaps it was different in this world. After all, some formidable defensive-type spirit abilities might not be unable to block Yama's invitation, like that Black Tortoise Spirit Master Tang San and the others met. If a spirit like Black Tortoise was cultivated to a certain degree, and unleashed some defenses beforehand, that could stop Yama's invitation. Unfortunately, Shi Nian was an illusionist spirit master. Defense wasn't his strong suit. Furthermore, how could he know Tang San possessed such a terrifyingly potent hidden weapon? Panting for breath, Tang San looked at the place where the black liquid had already drained into the yellow earth, and inwardly he couldn't help feeling a burst of lingering fear. It was after all a 72nd ranked spirit sage that had wanted to kill him. If the opponent hadn't used illusions, but rather was a power attack type spirit master, even if he had been able to use Yama's invitation to kill the opponent, perhaps it still might have ended in mutual death. In his heart, he intensely felt that his own strength was insufficient. Even though he could be considered a genius among his peers, compared to true powers, the distance was still way too far. Pulling out a dragon zoysia leaf from the wishful 100 treasure purse and stuffing it in his mouth and recovering his strength, when Tang San prepared to harmonize his breath and return to Shrek Academy as soon as possible, out of the corner of his eye, he suddenly caught a brilliant light from that puddle of black liquid that had been Shi Nian. An intense astonishment rushed out of his heart. He was only too clear on the corrosive effect of Yama's invitation's poison. Let alone clothing, even solid gemstones would be corroded into smoke by that violent poison. What thing had actually not been destroyed by that toxic fluid? Forcing himself to his feet, Tang San cautiously approached the side of the black liquid, and as he clearly saw that brightly glittering object, the pupils of his eyes suddenly contracted. That was a round skull, 3 kun in diameter, entirely glittering with rainbow-colored light, seemingly like a shrunken human cranium. 2 words abruptly flashed through Tang San's mind, making his brain completely turn blank for a moment. Spirit bone. Yes, this was definitely a spirit bone, and it was even an extremely precious skull bone. That brutal dream spirit Shi Nian actually also had such a treasure. Tang San didn't feel pleasantly surprised, but rather fearful. If before, Shi Nian had used the effect of this spirit bone, then vulgar strange Uncle Bula, whose chicken was roasted by Fatty Back in Suotuo City. On a related note, strange uncle is slang for pedophile. Sheep fat white jade is a high-grade type of jade.